NRATV with Grant Stinchfield.
Hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. It turns out the woman making sexual assault allegations against Brett Kavanaugh has come forward. A California professor registered as a Democrat. Today, Judge Kavanaugh vehemently denied this story and said he's prepared to testify again before the Senate. The allegations are 35 years old, and it looks like the Democrats knew about them long before the hearings and failed to bring them up so the judge could answer for them himself. Once again, to me, the Democrats prove they aren't about fairness or due process, fundamentals America was built on, but they are about destruction, destroying anyone who stands in their way. We see it with President Trump, and we see it now with Judge Kavanaugh. I have no idea if Judge Kavanaugh pushed this woman down on a bed at a high school house party where she wriggled free and ran away or not. What I do know is, in the 35 years since, not one other woman has raised such an allegation. 65 other women have now come forward to publicly defend him. 65 of them. I can prove that Judge Kavanaugh has a stellar and outstanding reputation as a judge and a man. Yet they have one single-sourced allegation that can derail history. Sadly, we now live in a world where one allegation, before any evidence is collected or any investigation is done, or even any trial is concluded, can send the media sharks into a feeding frenzy. Lives are destroyed, often with no proof. To me, it is shameful the Democrats held this so-called Me Too card until the last minute, as a last-ditch effort to stop a good man's confirmation to the Supreme Court. If the allegations are true, they should have been raised by those who knew about them back in July, like Dianne Feinstein, when the nation could hear this man's response, look in his eyes, judge his truthfulness for ourselves. But instead, the Democrats waited, and that, to me, is cheating. Why should we be surprised? Washington is where political games are played, and the games are filled with cheaters. So the question becomes, what to do now? My opinion, and my opinion only, is to move forward with a vote. The hearings were designed to bring up concerns. They failed to do so during their allotted time. This accuser could have come forward at a time when witnesses were brought up to speak out against Judge Kavanaugh. She decided not to do that. She had 35 years to decide what she would do in this situation. She told her husband, allegedly, that she feared he'd become a member of the Supreme Court. 35 years to think about how she would handle this. She could have gone in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee earlier. Dianne Feinstein could have called her up. They decided not to. Why? Because this is about weaponizing this single-sourced allegation. It's about a political game, and the Democrats knew exactly what they were doing. I want you to think about the consequences of all of this. A single-sourced allegation from 35 years ago to go back and rehear Judge Kavanaugh's confirmation hearings with no evidence. All of it is being used as a weapon. It would set a precedent that could ruin far too many good people in the future. The bottom line is the Democrats knew exactly what they were doing. They specialize in playing dirty. Once again, they did it. Joining me now is the managing editor for the Media Research Center, Brittany Hughes. Brittany, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Grant. Always glad to be here.
Brittany, what do you make of all of this?
I think it's horribly sad from top to bottom. And I'll tell you who doesn't get brought up at all, who I really feel bad for, and that's Kavanaugh's wife and two daughters, because they're right there in this with him. And I think this whole situation has been horribly mishandled, but it's been handled exactly the way that Senate Democrats wanted it to be. You raised a lot of points earlier. This is something that they've been sitting on since July. They had every opportunity to bring it up for the last over 6 weeks. These were very serious allegations that if they thought they had any merit, should have been brought up before. And you're exactly right. This is not about getting to the truth. As a matter of fact, just a few minutes ago before I came on your show, Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley released a statement saying that he's reached out to Feinstein's office to try to set up follow-up calls to Ford, because that's what you do. If you want an investigation, if you want the truth to come out, then you have to talk to both parties. Feinstein's office has reportedly refused to help so far. So So again, this is not about helping a sexual assault victim. This is not about trying to clear an innocent man's name. This is not about getting to the truth or finding justice in any capacity. They waited on this for over 6 weeks, dropped a bombshell, are refusing to help cooperate with the investigation that they themselves have called for, and are refusing to answer or to get to the bottom of very, very pertinent questions that have yet to be answered. And all of that is because they're trying to stonewall. And I also feel sad, in a way for this woman. If she is telling the truth, she is being used as a political prop. The left has no interest in getting justice for her whatsoever. She is being used to stonewall a confirmation hearing for a man that they hate because they hate who nominated him. That is ultimately what this is about. And I think it's a really sad, if you will allow me to broaden for just 1 second, it's really sad that that's what the Me Too movement in general has become about. It's no longer about helping sexual assault victims or about seeking justice or about taking a look at our criminal justice system, how better we can help assault victims. It is being weaponized. We've seen it time and time again, weaponized to demonize all men. Now it's being weaponized to target political opponents at the last minute to try to get what you want. I think it's shameful. I think it's embarrassing. And if the Democrats really wanted justice, if they really want truth, then they would be helping answer these questions and cooperate, and they're not. That tells you all you need to know right there about their motives in this.
Yeah, look, they had an opportunity to bring this woman forward during the course of how this system is supposed to work. They chose not to do that. And again, my opinion only, is they should just move forward with a vote. The problem now is you have very flaky senators, no pun intended, when you look at the senator from Arizona, Jeff Flake, now saying he's not comfortable with a vote on all of this. The Democrats knew that we had some flakes in the Republican Party. And so now Chuck Grassley is in a very tough spot with all of this. But think about the precedent, Brittany. You have one single-sourced allegation at the last minute dropped on a Supreme Court nominee. This could happen for any cabinet member, and I don't care whether they're Democrat or Republican. It isn't right. It's certainly not playing fair, and it doesn't go into the values of how America was founded. They do this now, and they rehear Judge Kavanaugh and his position in the Supreme Court. This sets a very ugly precedent down the road.
Well, not only for people who step into the political spotlight, which at this point I'm wondering why anybody even would, but I'll tell you, as a wife of a Navy officer, as a daughter, as a sister of a brother, this concerns me in general for men. I think it's a scary time in a way to be a guy. If that is what our justice system is now dependent on, if in the court of public opinion you can be tried and convicted based on one almost 4-decade-old allegation from one woman who says that you did something, she has no proof. She has no one to corroborate this story. She didn't come out for decades. It took decades for her to come out and say it in the first place. Dozens of other women have come out and said, no, that's not the way this guy ever behaved. We never saw any kind of behavior like this from him. If that's all it takes to ruin your life, to bar you from public office, to ruin your career, to damage your reputation and your family, then I really, really fear for where this country is headed. Because, look, at the end of the day, of course we want to help sexual assault victims. Of course we want to encourage women to come forward and to come forward soon so that justice can be had and evidence can be gathered. We want that. Of course we do. But we cannot live in a society where one allegation years and years later is enough to completely ruin your entire life. You have to presume innocent until proven guilty. I mean, how many times have we seen innocent men go to jail for things that we found out that they didn't do? And then society gets angry over that. So do we really want to live in a world where that's all it takes to completely convict someone in the public's eye, where it can be weaponized against a political opponent? Absolutely not. It's a horrible slippery slope.
I agree with you that the Me Too movement at its start was a valuable tool to raise awareness to a very horrible problem. But once again, what the left does is they weaponize that movement. And really, they besmirch the people who came forward early on by trying to lump in all this other stuff. And you make a very good point that now one allegation can ruin somebody. It reminds me much of the McCarthy hearings. Joe McCarthy telling people that, this guy's communist with little or no evidence of being a communist. They marched him up in Senate hearings. This feels like that. And it's sad that we have not learned from that time, and that was so wrong, that we get to now. But I remember Harry Reid getting on the Senate floor and saying that Mitt Romney hasn't paid his taxes with absolutely no evidence whatsoever. So here we are. They're pulling a page right out of their playbook, and we're back where we started. The bottom line is, Brittany, the Democrats are much better at politics in Washington than the Republicans are. And the only reason they're better at that is because they lie and they cheat. And that's how they win. And politics is filled with cheaters. Unfortunately, to be good at politics in Washington, you've got to be a liar and a cheater. And that makes the Democrats far better than the Republicans are.
Well, I think you brought up a wonderful point, and that's the complete double standard. I mean, if you take a look at this, Kavanaugh has been convicted. I mean, Planned Parenthood was, of course, immediately tweeting out, how dare they vote to confirm a sexual assaulter to the Supreme Court we haven't even begun to establish that he did anything wrong. We're not even close to that at this point. There are way too many unanswered questions, and there's no proof, and there's absolutely no corroboration. But if you take that now and compare it to just a few weeks ago, when Congressman Keith Ellison was the one in the spotlight, his ex-girlfriend came forward. Karen Monahan said that she had been abused by him. Her son came out, said that he had seen evidence of that, said there was a videotape of it. And all Keith Ellison had to do was say, no, of course I didn't do it. And Democrats were like, oh, well, see, of course he didn't do it. That's all that took. But now you've got Kavanaugh, who is being accused with even less than that of a 35-year-old alleged crime by a woman who can't prove it, who is a little bit shady on her details, whose recollection doesn't match with her therapist notes. I mean, there are so many questionable gray areas of her story, and they've already branded Kavanaugh a rapist at this point. The double standard could not be more clear.
The hypocrisy of the left never ceases to amaze me. Brittany Hughes, as always, great pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Grant.